Hey everybody, Daniel here. I'm just doing a quick little channel update video, and while I do that, I thought I'd go ahead and rank some Superman books because that is my primary interest here. I had intended to have a few other videos out before now, but I unfortunately got sick. It was either COVID or the flu. Who knows? It wasn't great. And it just set me back on, scripting and recording and even just my easier videos where I just kind of chat in front of a green screen. But those are going to be coming out. I'm going to start releasing them next week. I started recording, all my scripts are done. But until then, I thought I'd put out a little something just, to help tide my very small fan base over. I am recording this at my buddy Ryan's house, where we just got done recording our podcast, The Horror of Babylon.
Happy Easter!
Happy Easter. Uh, if you like long form, more analytical stuff about horror novels, that is what we cover there. I'll put a link to the description below. I unfortunately don't own a PC, so doing tier lists just aren't something that I can regularly do, but he was nice enough to let me do this while I was here so that I could create a little something and get it out there. And with that, let's get started. First, I think I'm going to define, where things, fall. Haven't read is pretty obvious. But for S tier is not just going to be something that I personally think is fantastic. It's also going to be something that I believe I would recommend to somebody who doesn't regularly read Superman. If I needed to try to sell Superman to somebody, this is a book that I would put out. I think it's legitimately great, and it might be able to create a fan. A is just below that. I probably just really like it, you know, but it might not. It might not win somebody over. And, B and C, kind of the more mid range. D is something I'm going to say might actively hurt someone's perception of what the books are like or what the characters like, or might even just get them to, I'm not really vibing with it. And F is something that I personally think hurts either not just my enjoyment, but could hurt a lot of people's enjoyment. Now, even F and S are still up for personal interpretation, so if you don't agree, well, you're wrong, because I am always right. Ryan's shaking his head at me. Now we're gonna start off with Grant Morrison's Superman New 52 book. Now, the New 52 was sort of interesting as just sort of a hard reboot in quotation marks, because when it first started, they didn't know how much they were actually rebooting, how much of the lore they were keeping. And not all of that's Grant Morrison's fault, but some of that does leak into Grant Morrison's book. Overall, I think it's very good. Um, Grant Morrison is always somebody that I think can legitimately write Superman very well. A lot of younger people seem to really like this book, and probably because they started reading when the New 52 came out. Um, I kind of have a weird history when it comes to the orders. I've read a lot of these books. A lot of them are in this haphazard order because of when I started reading Superman. I started reading the New 52 probably before some of the post-crisis stuff that I got into. Uh, I think that there are some weaknesses in this book. A lot of them I don't find to be Grant Morrison's fault, though there are some Grant Morrison isms in there. He has a tendency to just kind of go with the most absolute bonkers stuff that he can. He also has a very definitive idea of how he pictures Superman. He pictures him as a socialist hero, as somebody that always fights for the little guy. And in a lot of his stories, the government is the bad guy. Cops are used primarily as a antagonistic force, maybe not always as evil, and that's fine. I personally am more of a dude who Superman tries to get along with everybody unless you're literally a Nazi or literally Stalin, for that matter. And I also think that Jerry Siegel and Schuster both were more in that camp, but that's a whole other discussion. So I'm actually going to put this one in B. I think it's pretty enjoyable. I think you can get a lot out of it, but it doesn't do as much for me that I want to have in an A ranking. It's not how I always view Superman. Seeing him in jeans also, that's a choice. It's okay for his early days, and it's not as bad as the metallic suit we get later in the New 52. Okay, next up is Philip Kennedy Johnson's War World saga. This is being hailed as a new instant classic. Uh, and you know what? Overall, I agree. I think Philip Kennedy Johnson during these last few years has really been carrying Clark Kent as a character, while they were sort of trying to phase him out. He sort of kept that spark alive. This book also introduces Superman's two new twins, so there's a lot of good world building in this. Uh, I like that he's sort of depowered at first and then he gets ultra powered as the story goes. I'm a feet guy, so I'm always about I like to see Superman do cool stuff, but I also like to see him depowered for like a minute just to see how, because people are like, "Oh, you take his powers away, what's left?" Well, I mean, here he is fighting with axes and shields and just doing what he can to still save people, which really speaks a lot to the character. Uh, Overall, I am going to agree that this is an instant classic. Go up here. Gonna have to scroll up a little bit. And we're gonna put that in S tier. It's gonna be our first S. I think that the order a lot of these are, and I probably would have put these in chronological order that they appeared, but that lets me, ramble for a minute. But if you really want to try to sell somebody on not just Superman as a character, but what Superman can do depowered against one of his most underrated enemies, Mongol, fan freaking tastic. This Action Comics run is super good. Philip Kennedy Johnson actually just finished up his Action Comics run, and I'm a little sad to see it go. Next up is All Star Superman, and this is also going to be an S tier. This is probably, it's not my number one, but if I had to say, if there's a book that you need to try to convince someone to be a Superman fan, this is the book that you hand them. It has stuff from all over his history. It has a little bit of Golden Age, a little bit of Silver Age, but it has a lot of the heart of the character in it. Also written by Grant Morrison, a really big Superman fanboy who's just, he is usually on point when it comes to representing who this dude is. And I don't have a lot more to say about it other than that. I actually haven't read this one. I think that's American Alien. I haven't read it. Superman Birthright. Okay, so this came out. I don't remember if Secret Origin or Birthright came out first, but this is kind of they wanted to build on the lore that Byrne sort of walked back on whenever they did their first post crisis reboot, and this added a lot of really good heart and soul to it. If I'm remembering right, this is a Geoff Johns book. You get reintroduction to Lex Luthor being Superman's childhood friend, so it adds that dynamic back in. You get a really cool kryptonite introduction. Um, Overall, I think this is probably the best origin story for Superman. I think that if you want just if you want to pretend that it's a manga and that you want a volume one, this is volume one. This is what you should hand somebody. Okay, what is this? I can't actually read what that is. Is that for all seasons? I'll come back to that. Generations. Generations is fine. I'm not I'm not too I'm not too high on it. We're gonna put Generations and we'll put it in C tier. It doesn't offend me any. Supergirl. Haven't read Supergirl, surprisingly. Okay, Superman Kryptonite. Superman Kryptonite's pretty good. I'm not a very big fan of the art style, which holds it back for me. It's my same problem with For All Seasons. Uh, and I know that's hearsay to say that you criticize For All Seasons at all, and people just get up in arms. But I was never a fan of the artwork. I think Superman looks kind of dopey in it. But overall, I'm still gonna put Superman Kryptonite as another sort of introduction to here's how Kryptonite came to be. I'm gonna put that at the top of B tier. I'm gonna say that's For All Seasons. I really can't see it, but For All
Absolute.
Is that Absolute? Absolute Superman? Oh, then I haven't read that. When I find For All Seasons, that's an A tier. George Perez Superman run also is just fine. I don't have a lot to say on it. I haven't read it in its entirety, but nothing about it ever made me mad. It's enjoyable enough. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's a hot take. Okay, we'll start you in C tier. Another Grant Morrison book. Superman and the Authority. Grant Morrison came out of retirement because they wanted to turn Superman, the main continuity Superman, into a fascist dictator and make him the arch enemy of his son. And Grant Morrison said, no, you can't write him like that. So I respect him for coming out of retirement and pitching this as like an alternative idea of him taking like slightly more violent heroes and trying to turn them to more of like a Superman dynamic. He's working with Manchester Black. And he's like, I think the costume is super dope. I love the Authority in here. We get Midnighter, we get Apollo. The team is super unique. My biggest problem with this book is not only does it feel like it's written for Zoomers most of the time, there are a few scenes that feel like they're written by Zoomers. There's this one scene in this book where Natasha Steele is fighting trolls, and they're saying stuff like, women can't be superheroes. You should kill yourself. You're ugly. And she's like, literal body shaming trolls, and it was the cringiest thing I'd read in a Superman book in a really long time. I still think I'm going to put it in B tier because sans those scenes, I'm actually going to put it at the top of B tier. Sans those scenes, it's pretty great. But there are just some stuff in it where I didn't believe it was written by Grant Morrison because I've read his dialogue, and usually he can be a little obtuse. He can be a little like, I don't know how to describe it, overly philosophical. And in this one, I was like, my God, dude, I know you might be trying to like speak to a new generation, but I could not get on board with a lot of the dialogue, and some of the pacing really suffers, especially towards the middle and the end. But you kept Superman from being a fascist. You gave him a cool costume. You got him getting people around, to his way of thinking, and that makes for a good Superman book. Oh God, For Tomorrow. Okay, so Small Daniel story time. For Tomorrow was actually the first Superman trade I ever read, so I have a soft spot for this book. I really do. These days when I reread it, I generally accept that it's pretty bad, not just as a book, but as a Superman book. It has a lot of issues. But there are a few scenes I still like in it, and because I have a soft spot, that's going to keep it out of F, but I do have to put it in D tier, because I really wouldn't ask a lot of people to go out of their way to read this one. World's Finest. Woo, okay, here we go. Batman, Superman. This is A tier. This is fantastic. This benefits from having an animated adaptation, so it also could help if you want to get somebody to maybe read this run. But, they don't know if they want to, like, because there's a lot of volumes of this. I think the omnibus is still like a couple $100. But the animated movie's pretty good. It's a good, like, shortened version of this. You get stuff like the President Luthor bits. I almost want to put it in S. I think I'm going to stick it in A. Batman's my second favorite superhero of all time, too, so that really helps elevate it. And I like the dynamic that they have in this because they're the two dudes going, they're the DC's top dogs going on adventures together, and that's great. And they're not fighting, thank God, except for like a couple of issues, which honestly they're pretty good issues. So, New 52 Batman Superman. This is also going in D tier. I almost want to put it in F. I wasn't a fan of this run. I didn't read this run in its entirety. I'm gonna put it. Yeah, I'm gonna put it like that. Batman Superman. I don't have a lot to say about it. I didn't think it was very good. I didn't think it was very enjoyable. I don't think a lot of the New 52 is all that good. But my opinion's not the only one out there. But I don't have a lot. Okay, here we go. Here's the big one, Bendis. Okay. There seems to be two camps of thought. It's either that Bendis had a lot of like really good ideas, or he's the worst thing to happen to Superman. And this is my first F tier. Here's a few of my problems with Bendis. This is a man who came on to Superman and had a story he wanted to tell. And that's fine. You have a story you want to tell. You have these ideas that you want to get out. That's fine. My biggest issue is he looked at like the last 5 years of continuity and went, don't care. Characters are showing up out of nowhere that we, Jor-El, for instance, just kind of shows up, and the last time we'd seen him, he had been imprisoned by Dr. Manhattan, and now he just shows up and it's like, oh, I can't believe you're raising John Kent like this, Superman. He knows nothing of his Kryptonian heritage. I'm going to take him into space with me. Unsupervised, even though the last time you met me, I was a villain trying to imprison you. And at first Superman's like, nah, I don't think that's a great idea. And then John Kent just looks at him and goes, oh, I'm going, Dad. And his 30-year-old father just goes, all right, I guess you can go with your supervillain grandpa into space. I guess that's fine. And what happens? Bendis, because he can't write anyone that isn't a smarmy teenager, ages John Kent up. I'll never forget this. He ages John Kent up. John Kent comes back, and it's not like there's a time skip. He's just aged up. And Lois Lane sees him, and she starts bawling. And she holds her son and just says, I missed everything. And honestly, I felt like Bendis unintentionally wrote how a lot of fans of John Kent felt in that moment. And there's a lot of other issues with his run. He tries to add to Superman's lore, which is fine. I'm not against people adding to the lore. But I want you to ask yourself, is anyone remember Rogol-Zar? Do you? Do you really? Is that your favorite Superman villain? Rogol-Zar is no one's favorite Superman villain. What did Rogol-Zar do? Oh, nothing. According to Bendis, he blew up Krypton. Bendis went, you know what Superman needs? Frieza. He added a Frieza. Then he got rid of the Clark Kent identity and said, Superman shouldn't have a secret identity. He's just gonna be out. People are gonna know Clark Kent is Superman. And people would defend it, go, oh, this should be Superman's end goal. One of the reasons Rebirth happened is because DCU, that's YOU, did that exact same story, and it caused the sales to tank. Nobody liked it. And Bendis did it again. And I think he wrote some scenes that were more emotionally engaging with it. But that's the nicest thing I can say. I think it was a bad idea. I think it's a book filled with bad ideas, and I'd never recommend anyone read it. If you enjoy it, all the power to you. But I'm not a fan. Geoff Johns' Brainiac. Here we go. Now this is a book. This is another one of those books that's like a hey, Byrne's post-crisis and all the things that he kind of messed up with Superman lore? Let's fix that. Geoff Johns does that a lot with post-crisis, where he adds to lore and it's like, oh, let's bring some of the stuff back from the Silver Age and let's modernize it like a little bit. Let's add some emotional resonance, some stuff that like even older fans can recognize, and let's build upon the lore in ways that make sense, Bendis. Lots of great iconography. This is probably going to be the top of A tier. It's also a very emotional book. I don't want to spoil things that happen, but I think it also gets to the heart of Superman as Clark Kent and how he interacts with especially his Earth parents. Okay, here's another hot take. Okay. We're gonna start UND. Okay. The Man of Steel. The Byrne run, the post-crisis reboot. My Twitter seems to be divided into two camps. People who think Byrne is the devil and that his is the worst era of Superman that's ever been written. And that's what I call the Twitter crowd. My Twitter is all that. And then you have Reddit, who thinks that he is a instant classic and you can't say anything bad about him. And you're both wrong. He's just bottom of C tier. The run's fine. There's a lot of neat characters introduced that have stood the test of time. There are some cool concepts that have really, stuck with people, and there's some really stupid stuff. And at the end of the day, the stuff that stuck around has stuck around. The art's good. It's probably going to be top of C tier. I would tell people, well, if you want to rate it, if you want to see some of that like weird, it's a middle child of Superman books. It's coming after the Silver Age. It's the beginning of post-crisis, but it ain't quite what we have in this modern day stuff. It's perfectly fine. If you don't like it, I would say that's a fine thing to say. But he's not the devil. Writing a Superman that identifies more with his Earth self doesn't make him the devil. There are people who identify more with their adoptive family than they do with their history. And there seems to be this contingency of people who believe that Superman has to identify more with his Kryptonian side. And that he shouldn't be working with the government. He doesn't even really work with the government as much as people are trying to insinuate he does. He's just more willing to not pull a Morrison, as it were. Even though that's sort of, as you can tell, my preference here. But Byrne's perfectly fine. Earth 1, D tier. Don't have a lot to say. The Alan Moore Superman Annual. Now this is great. It was also adapted into a DC animated universe episode with the Black Mercy and Superman envisioning a world, his heart's desire. Mongol uses it to subdue him because he believes no one else on Earth can stop him. Wonder Woman gets into a full-on fist fight with Mongol, can't take him. Batman's trying to get like the Black Mercy off of Superman. This is another S tier. I'm actually going to put it above Birthright and Philip Kennedy Johnson's run. This is another quintessential Superman story. I like to say that this is one of Alan Moore's best books. I like it more than Watchmen. I like it more than V for Vendetta. Granted, it being short helps, or shorter than both of those helps. I don't know what this is. Death of Superman. Death of Superman broke death in comics. I'm a big fan of Jurgens and some of the stuff that he does. I'm a big fan of his writing. I'm a big fan of the writing of the time when it comes to that 90s sort of Superman. I also love the stuff that we get after this. But the story itself is just sort of okay. I almost want to put it in D tier for like how badly it broke death in comics. Because Superman coming back from the dead, now no one's going to ever stay dead. And that's a critique that's often levied at this book, and I think it's a fair critique. You get Doomsday, and people seem to love Doomsday for some godforsaken reason. Doomsday's just a worse Hulk to me. He's fine. Getting to see Doomsday on Booster Gold is really funny. I really like that. But other than that, it's a perfectly acceptable book. Man and Superman. I can't remember if I've read this one. This looks familiar. I'm going to put it under haven't read. That looks so familiar. I can't say for sure. Superman, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. Now, this is another book that Alan Moore wrote. And he wrote this book because they said they were rebooting Superman. They're like, we're starting over. We're starting from zero. And Alan Moore is having lunch with the dude telling him this. And he goes, I want you to let me write a main continuity Superman's ending. I want you to let me write how I would definitively end the character of like the Silver Age Superman. And it is also S tier. I'm going to put it right next to Alan Moore's other story. I prefer Superman Annual. Superman Anal, I'm going to start calling it. Ryan over here making faces at me. But in terms of how do I think Superman's story would end? How would I write, like, if I had to write like a final issue? Not 100% how I would write it these days, because I'm especially a fan of John Kent and his twins now, so they'd probably be included in my stories. But at the time, this was a very good way to say this is who the character is, and this is it's a very logical conclusion to all the lore that had been built up. I can't kiss that book's ass enough. President Luther also can be C tier. It's fine. It doesn't offend me. I don't have a lot to say on President Luther. Oh, Superman Red Blue. So there was this thing that came out almost a year, maybe 2 years after this book first came out. And when this book first came out, everyone praised it, everyone loved it. And then there was this thing where people were saying, this book is awful because Superman is raped in the comic. And I was like, was it sexual assault? I interpreted that scene as torture and just like general humiliation, but people are like, oh no, that's full on. It was the weirdest bit of controversy, especially because it happened so much after the books had come out. But for me, and that's also not my favorite story. I think it's Totes who wrote that, and I frankly hate his writing. I don't think he's a very good person. But all the other stories, the way it's visually drawn, doing Superman anthologies, I think, is a good way to write Superman, because you can get like a taste of how different people interpret them and what different people want from them, and how, just how people see them, and then just seeing it in red and blue. I also like Wonder Woman. I think it's black and gold. There's a Ryan. There's a Batman version of that, ain't there?
It's Batman black and white, and there's like 4 runs of it.
Okay. I still haven't read that.
I've read all of them. They're pretty good. Well, yeah. I mean, it's an anthology, so
yeah,
there's varying quality, but overall it's good.
Yeah. But like that's all I can ever think of when I see this book now, which is kind of sad because I mean, it's not the only thing that was in there. But I mean, if that's the hill you want to die on, I mean, I guess I also wouldn't fault you for it. I also don't want to see Superman sexually assaulted. Superman Red Sun, here we go. This is probably my top of A tier. If I could get somebody into Superman using my S tier, this is probably one of the next books I'd have them read, because it's probably my favorite Elseworld Superman story. Written by the man Frank Miller, who people might know from Kick-Ass. He's also written some Superman, and I think he's a guy who is actually a pretty good Superman writer when you let him be. And this one also gets to the heart of the character of like how Superman's raised sort of matters, but how his heritage also plays like a big role into his decision-making process.
Did you say Frank Miller?
Yeah.
Mark.
Did I say Frank Miller? Yeah, it's Mark Miller.
And it's AR, it's Mark Millar.
Millar, yeah.
But I always say Miller, just to piss people off.
Mark Millar. God, I can't believe I said Frank Miller. Frank Miller's on this list somewhere. There he is. I know where I'm putting that. Under haven't read, but it doesn't seem like a book I would like. Mark Miller. Ryan, you've read Red Sun, haven't you?
I've read it 3 times.
Yeah, it's the Superman for the people. Here's the socialist Superman everyone should want. People probably don't like this one because of the ending.
It was so hard not to say something earlier when you said Superman tries to get along with everybody unless you're literally Stalin.
Yeah. I thought you would chime in. I've been saying shit to try to get your goat. Secret Identity's pretty good. Secret Identity's probably the book I've read the least amount on here, and it's been the longest. I remember really enjoying it. If I'm remembering this story right, it kind of reminds me of Superboy Prime's origin, where he exists in a world where there's no other superheroes, and he's just kind of a fan of Superman, and then it turns out he's Superman. I'm like 90% sure that that's right, and if that's the book I'm thinking of, I'd put it in B tier. I really enjoyed reading it. Superman Secret Origin, also pretty good. I can never remember which one's which until I read them, because I always get which one's Birthright and which one's Superman's Secret Origins mixed up in my head, because I'm a fucking grandpa and I can never keep that straight. So I'm just gonna put them next to each other. I think they're both really good origin stories for Superman. I can't read which run this is. I can't read the author. I'm going to interpret this as Superman Silver Age books. So I don't know what this is supposed to be, but this is Superman Silver Age books. This is going to be also near the top of A tier. I really have a soft spot for Silver Age stories and Bronze Age stories. I honestly love some of the goofiness you get from older comics. They tickle me pink, and I also think that there's a lot of storytelling methods that I think have been sort of lost when it comes to like how comics used to be written versus how they're written now. Sometimes I think people try to write comic books too much like they're novels. And I didn't have that. I don't have that problem when I'm reading Silver Age stories. But I also would not give a Silver Age book to somebody I'm trying to get into Superman books. A lot of that can be kind of a hard sell. Superman smashes the Klan. Ryan knows that I used to be, and still am to some extent, a fairly conservative person. And for some reason, people seem to think that means I hate when Superman smashes the Klan. And I do not know why people would think that, because I love watching the Klan get smashed.
I suppose it would be somewhat accurate to say that all Klan members are conservatives, but not all conservatives are Klan members.
Yeah, I'm like, I've also listened to the radio broadcast that inspired this. The art for this, I think, is some of the best art for Superman. It kind of reminds me of like somebody's trying to draw a cross between a traditional Western comic and a manga, and I really like that look. I'd really like to see more drawn by this dude. I would actually like to see more set in like that radio show era. Then just make that its own like little comic book universe. I'm probably gonna put it right below Superman Annual though. But Superman smashes the Klan. Fantastic art, fantastic message, fantastic pacing, and just smash more Klansmen. Superman might sometimes work with the police. He will always smash a Klan member, even if they are a police. I do not care. There's my hot take. Oh God, fucking Tom Taylor. Okay, Tom Taylor. One of these days I'll do a story time and tell everybody how I got blocked by Tom Taylor on Twitter. I think that would be kind of funny. Tom Taylor comes around, and this was right around the time they were going to do Future State, and what they were going to do, they were going to do a legitimate time skip. They were going to pull a Naruto, pull a Dragon Ball Z, pull a Bleach or whatever, and go, here's 10 years in the future, and this is the new normal. We're never going back. John Kent was going to be Superman. There was going to be a new Wonder Woman. It was going to be like more diverse, more zoomery. You know, that's all well and good. I'm on board. I mean, I wasn't on board because I don't care for that idea. I'm old. I want my stories. But in terms of an idea, like, did I hate it? No. Well, then that idea fell through. DC's editor-in-chief got changed. But they still wanted to do a Superman book without Clark. They were still trying to phase Clark out, and there's a lot of reasons for this. Part of that reason was legal litigation over the rights to Superman, whose public domain was quickly approaching, who had lawsuits against DC. A judge ruled that Truth, Justice, and the American Way was too generic and DC couldn't copyright it. So they came up with a new tagline, Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow. They made it John Kent's. They tried to make it Clark's, but it will not stick no matter what they do. And I actually, if you want my opinion, I think Truth, Justice, and the American Way should be Clark's tagline, and Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow should be John's. That is a generational thing. That's an actual story you can tell. My problem with the book is you get John Kent, and this is something that happens early, and he tried to walk back on it whenever his book got canceled. I don't care what Tom Taylor says, his book got canceled, and he got to wrap it up in a miniseries. Books that are selling well do not end after 16 issues. They get tentpole issues. But one of the first things that happens in this book is John Kent looks at Superman, Clark Kent, and goes, "Dad, why don't you do more?" And I'm sorry, when you live in a world as fantastical as DC, legitimate criticism against Gen X and boomers doesn't work. Superman lives in a universe where he has saved the multiverse from multiple crises multiple times. Clark Kent doing that once would save more lives than ending climate change ever would. It doesn't work on a logical level. Having John go up to his dad and go, "Hey dad, I think you need to interfere with worldly politics more," just doesn't work. And Tom Taylor should know that because he wrote Injustice. Granted, he tried to walk it back by having John Kent fight Injustice Superman at one point, but I don't believe for a second that was the intent. The book is overly preachy. A lot of people criticize it because John Kent came out as bisexual. I criticize it because his boyfriend fucking sucks. I think Jay Nakamura is extremely uninteresting. Should have been Damian Wayne.
Would you want a boyfriend that doesn't suck?
You know what? Just for that, it gets B tier. Ryan got it moved up from C tier to B tier. Because even with all my criticism, there is like, people call this like, oh, it's the gay Superman book. I'm like, okay, but like other stuff happens. My big problem is, and you know what, as a bisexual man, maybe I shouldn't like criticize this too hard. But in like across 4 issues, John Kent comes out 4 different times. And I'm like, to me, you get that twice. You get one to the audience, which is him kissing his boyfriend. That was the big reveal. Big reveal. It was leaked by a conservative comic book writer like months in advance. He goes, "Hey guys, this is gonna happen. Everyone's gonna call me a liar, but watch, it's gonna happen." And it happened. I believe that was Ethan Van Sciver, if I'm remembering correct. If I'm remembering drama correct, and I was like, "There's no freaking way," and then it happened. And then you get one where he comes out to his parents, and you can have your emotional moment. But they had him come out to the audience. They had him come out to his mother. Because his dad was off planet at the time because they were trying to write him out. When they brought him back because, the books weren't doing as well as they wanted. He gets to come out to his dad, and then he also comes out to the world. He gets to kiss his boyfriend in front of the news. And to me, I'm just like, at that point, I'm like, I get it. Tell a story. Make Jay Nakamura interesting. But Ryan got this bumped up to B tier instead of top of C tier. Because there are good things. Tom Taylor can write a good book. I just think he sucks at writing Superman. I don't think he has ever written a good Superman book. I don't think I've read this. That doesn't look familiar. Superman Speeding Bullet. What if Superman landed in Gotham and was raised by the Waynes, and then the Waynes were shot in front of him? It's B tier. It's fun. It's no Red Sun, but what can be. I think the ending to the book sort of sucks. But I like Elseworld stories. I kind of have a soft spot for him. I'm going to put it above Tom Taylor. But it's fun. It's perfectly fine. Superman Last Son. Probably a hot take because I see this in a lot of best Superman books. I'm putting this in D tier. I did not enjoy this book. I thought the villain was bad. I thought the book dragged. I'm just not a fan. Superman Rebirth, okay. I want to put this in S tier. I want to put this in S tier so bad it hurts. But there's too much baggage in it. I love John Kent. I love seeing Superman get to be a dad and do family stuff. I think that's some of the stuff that Jurgens and Tomasi did with Superman in Action Comics in the Rebirth era really got me back on board. I was buying weekly books. Oh, that's another thing. Bendis got me to drop my weekly pull list. I didn't buy Superman books for years. I only kept up with Superman continuity by reading books. I hopped back on Tom Taylor's book, tried that out, figured out it wasn't for me. But anyway, Rebirth, fantastic. Everything in this book appeals to me. I love seeing Superman get to be a dad. I'd love to see post-crisis Superman coming back into a new continuity and then seeing, continuity shit get rebooted. But comes with a lot of baggage. It comes with the New 52 baggage. New 52 Superman died. And then this Superman that we knew from the previous continuity just shows up and goes, I'm going to take his place. So Wonder Woman and Batman didn't trust him because they don't know who this guy is. So they have to bring that up a lot. They have to bring up the fact that they're from a different multiverse a lot until they merge them. So this book comes with a heavy amount of baggage. It can't be an S tier because of that. Superman Unchained. Also going to be D tier. It's another New 52 book. It's another book that had a lot of potential. But I just don't like the way Scott Snyder wrote Superman. Is it Up, and Away? Yeah, it's Up, and Away. I have not read Up, and Away yet. I know that's another hearsay. For everyone, I have Up, and Away. I just have not gotten around to it yet. Okay. What's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way? This is the top of S tier. I think this is the quintessential Superman story. It's my favorite Superman story, which deals a lot with his no-kill rule, his morality. And I also think it's the best one-shot ever written in comics. I can't even think of something that I would put next to it. Oh boy, I still haven't read that.
I've read it.
Where would you put this?
Well, I've only read 3 Superman books.
Yeah, which Red Sun,
Year One, and I think it's called. It's Ted McKeever's reimagining. Of
Oh
Superman.
yeah, okay.
It's like Metropolis or Metropole or something like that. I really like the first 2 issues and hated the 3rd issue. You would probably like the 3rd issue and hate the first 2.
That makes sense. There's a lot more. I was going to come into this tier list and add stuff because there's a lot that I have read that wasn't on this tier list, and then I saw how much it looked like I hadn't read, and I was like, oh my god, am I a fraud?
No, you've read the vast majority of it.
Yeah. Super Sons. I don't care that it comes with baggage. It's S tier. This book is freaking adorable. It's not above Alan Moore, though. It's not above Smashers the Clan either. But this is a fun adventure between, 2 just great friends. You got John Kent, who's the goodest boy in the whole world, and Damian Wayne, who's trying to be a little rebel. I love them so much. This book can do no wrong. If you do not like Super Sons, I think you just hate fun. When people tell me John Kent is boring, I think I cannot relate to them. I'm like, you hate fun. You hate wholesome. This is wonderful. I will hear no ill will. And in fact, you know what? It's top of S tier because of that. Oh boy. Okay. Another little story time. Tom King is a writer I really hate that a lot of people really love. He gets a lot of awards. He does a lot of I'm going to call it trauma dumping. He does trauma dumping books. And I don't read comic books for trauma dumping. I don't find it fun. That doesn't bleed into this book very much. In fact, I think that this is a very good premise for a Superman book. It's about a little girl is abducted by aliens, just one person, and Superman spends a lot of time just going through space trying to find and save her. And there's like all these quotes like, one little girl just isn't worth this, and Superman's like, yeah, she is. Anyone is worth this. You Superman would go out of his way to save anybody he could. John Kent. Uh, I think that this out of I'm surprised Tom King hasn't blocked me on Twitter because I criticize him all the time too with memes. But maybe he just has a better sense of humor than Tom Taylor does, or maybe I went too far. But that's a story for a different day. This is also A tier.
Superman's Metropolis.
I need to read that.
Ted McKeever did a trilogy of one shots reimagining Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman, and I read all three. That's why I read that one.
Okay, well, I mean, that sounds enjoyable.
I like the Batman one.
I think you would love Super Sons. I legitimately think that this is right up your alley.
I'll try it.
I mean, I would recommend, like, if I was trying to convince you to read a Superman book, it'd be anything up here. I also think you'd really like Superman Smashes the Klan.
Yeah, I've intended to read that one.
Yeah. We can go smash Klansmen together.
This is the Wonder Woman one, the Blue Amazon.
Okay.
I'll find the Batman one. And this one is the best of the three, Batman Nosferatu.
That is the best of the three. I don't even care about Superman anymore. You got me with a Nosferatu reference.
Yep.
Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, A tier. Probably, it's not as good. I don't like his stories. I mean, I haven't read all of them. There's a crap ton. But it's probably going to be, I'm actually going to move this up because I think this is legitimately very good. This, Tom King is another reason I dropped my pull list. I think it was, God, it was the story where he had Wally West accidentally kill a bunch of people and then try to cover it up. And this was like right at like when they were ending the Rebirth saga. And I was like, Rebirth literally just brought hope and light back to the DC universe, and that it's like playing 5th edition D&D with a bunch of Zoomers. It's all trauma dumping. I don't have any fun. Jimmy also is very fun. For those who don't know, a lot of like really big Superman lore stuff happened in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, like the introduction to Darkseid, Inner Gang, a lot of stuff like that happened in this run, in this era, and it's very enjoyable. It's very Silver Age. You got to be on board for some like stupid shit, but I'm on board. Ryan, how long have you known me? I'm on board for stupid shit most of the time.
That's a lie.
Mark Waid. I'm also surprised Mark Waid hasn't blocked me. Because Mark Waid blocks everybody. And I criticize Mark Waid a lot. Not for his writing. His writing is S tier. This is his current World's Finest book. A lot of people, we're gonna talk about cancel culture for a minute. A lot of people in that, like, not people who do cancel culture, but a lot of people like that bitch and moan about it. They're like, oh, liberals are ruining comics. They're like, we just want a good, wholesome adventure where we don't talk about politics and it's just the story. That's World's Finest. It's coming from one of the biggest, liberals in comics, because he just knows how to tell a good story. Like, I don't see anyone giving him credit for this. That's the book you're asking for. It's this. I would give this book to anybody and say, hey, this will make you a fan of Batman. This will make you a fan of Superman. It'll make you a fan of crossovers. It's going to be at the bottom because I'm about 5-6 issues behind on reading this. Because it's not on my active pull list. I'm just kind of getting it as I feel like reading something. But it's very enjoyable. They're getting ready to do he's doing because Mark Waid also helped write one of the best books ever written, Kingdom Come, which should have been on this list, would also be S tier. But he's doing a crossover with his current World Finest and the Kingdom Come version of the characters, or the Kingdom version of the characters. and I'm super excited to read that if it hasn't already come out because, like I said, I'm behind. But this is my tier list. I only have one in F. You know what? I'm gonna appease people. There you go. I appeased the majority. But that's my list. Like I said, knocked over some DVDs. I'm gonna finally work on some tier videos. I got my how much can Superman lift video and why that really doesn't matter video coming out. I got a video coming out on a rant on Superman's current scaling because it just got broken in the newest issue that Ryan just picked up for me. And Ryan and I, at some point, he's going to help me scale Slappy from the Goosebumps books because apparently he just has a bunch of powers.
Hello, Papa.
Yeah, so. But this is my list. All jokes aside, I expect people to disagree with me, and that's okay. I think Superman is great enough of a character that there are people who love Bendis, and if Bendis makes you love Superman, I'd rather you love Bendis as Superman than not like Superman at all. That's my non-edgelord opinion. Uh, about the only thing I would say that there are very few books that I think have damaged my perception of the character, and they're usually Elseworld stories. And those were things that I read before I was a Superman fan. So it's usually why I don't lead with them. So here's my list. I hope everybody has a fantastic time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to be linking a bunch of socials, so check those out. And everyone
Mike
have a
was
good time.
muted.
The whole time?
Yeah.
Really?
No.
Oh, shit.